Here is today's featured headline in space. SpaceX launched a second set of Space Development Agency satellites Wednesday. Today is October 16th, 2025, and you're listening to Space News First Up, brought to you by Black Sky.
And now a word from our sponsor, Black Sky. Black Sky empowers customers to see, understand, and anticipate change with real-time space-based intelligence, delivering on-demand, high-frequency satellite imagery, analytics, and dynamic monitoring for decisive strategic and tactical advantage. Visit blacksky.com to learn more.
Here are today's other top headlines. Commercial space station developer Axiom Space replaced its CEO Wednesday. Beyond Gravity is weighing expanding solar array drive mechanism production in Florida to support Golden Dome and other U.S. space projects. And the Artemis Accords turned 5 years old this week.
First Up is produced by Space News, the industry standard for professional space journalism. Visit spacenews.com for breaking news, policy updates, and original analysis.
We begin with news that SpaceX launched a second set of Space Development Agency satellites Wednesday. A Falcon 9 lifted off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California at 7:06 p.m. Eastern and placed 21 Transport Layer Tranche 1 satellites built by Lockheed Martin into orbit. This is the second set of Transport Layer Tranche 1 satellites to launch after the first set launched a month ago. The Tranche 1 constellation will feature 10 planes of satellites, 6 for Transport Layer communications and 4 for Tracking Layer missile tracking applications. Commercial space station developer Axiom Space replaced its CEO Wednesday. The company announced that it had appointed Jonathan Certain as CEO, replacing Tejpal Bhatia. The company described the move only as a strategic leadership change to advance the company's development of critical space infrastructure. Bhatia, who joined Axiom in 2021 as Chief Revenue Officer, was promoted to CEO in April. Certain is a former executive with nuclear technology company BWXT who joined IBX, the investment company whose portfolio includes Axiom Space, as president in May. Axiom is developing a commercial space station whose first module will be attached temporarily to the ISS starting in late 2027. It is also making spacesuits for NASA's Artemis lunar exploration effort. Beyond Gravity is weighing expanding solar array drive mechanism production in Florida to support Golden Dome and other U.S. space projects. The Swiss company said Wednesday it is expanding production of such mechanisms in Europe to meet demand for programs like the Iris-squared secure broadband constellation. A U.S. production line would focus primarily on programs like Golden Dome and the Space Development Agency's satellite constellations. The Artemis Accords turned 5 years old this week. Monday marked the 5th anniversary of a ceremony where the United States and 7 other nations became the first to sign the Accords, which outline norms of behavior for space exploration. A total of 56 nations have now signed the Accords, and representatives of 39 of them met at the International Astronautical Congress 2 weeks ago to discuss implementation issues. Those topics ranged from non-interference and safety zones to how to encourage more nations to participate, although at a press conference after the meeting officials provided few specifics.
Discover your next mission in the space industry with the Space News Job Exchange. Visit jobs.spacenews.com to find top aerospace roles and connect with leading employers. And for employers, use discount code JOBEX for 15% off your next purchase.
In other news, China launched another set of satellites for its Guowang broadband constellation Wednesday. A Long March 8A rocket lifted off at 9:33 p.m. Eastern from the Hainan Commercial Space Launch Center, carrying the 12th set of Guowang satellites. Chinese officials did not disclose the number of satellites on board, but previous Long March 8A launches for Guowang each carried 9 satellites. The National Guowang Project, led by the state-owned China SatNet, will consist of nearly 13,000 satellites in low Earth orbit and is part of China's response to Starlink. This launch will bring the constellation up to 95 satellites, with a near-term goal of having 400 satellites in orbit by 2027. This was the 600th launch of a rocket in the Long March family and comes just 22 months after the 500th launch. By contrast, it took China 37 years to perform the first 100 Long March launches. Spaceflight now reports that a Falcon 9 launched more Starlink satellites early this morning. The rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral at 5:27 a.m. Eastern and put 28 Starlink satellites into orbit. This was the 131st Falcon 9 launch so far this year, with more than 90 of them devoted to Starlink.
Share your company's news with the entire space industry through Stellar Dispatch, the press release service from Space News. Learn more and use discount code SD2106 for 15% off when you submit yours at spacenews.com/Stellar Dispatch.
Defense Scoop reports that the U.S. Army plans to make counterspace systems a priority in future budgets. An Army official said at a conference this week that counterspace capabilities will be included in its strategic priority list for the first time for its fiscal year 2027 budget proposal. Those capabilities include disrupting an adversary's satellite communications and surveillance capabilities through efforts like jamming. Officials said emphasizing those programs and calling them counterspace was important. Reuters reports that France and Germany have agreed to jointly develop a satellite-based missile warning system. The defense ministers of the two countries signed an implementation agreement Wednesday for a program called Odin's Eye, which would use satellites to provide early warnings of missile launches. The program would support missile defense initiatives in Europe,